Hello all, and welcome to the Caregiver Support Series. Wow, this marks the 10th episode of the Caregiver Support Series. Time sure flies. Today I will be talking a little bit about the natural dying process. Death is a subject that most people consciously try to avoid until it's right up in their faces. But there are life-affirming ways to think and talk about death, and I can't stress it enough. It's so important to consider what you would or would not want if you suddenly became ill or injured. So sit back with your favorite cold beverage and relax. As usual, feel free to reach out with questions or topic suggestions. I will be talking about two symptoms that every patient experiences, no matter what their diagnosis is. They are also two symptoms that can help predict or determine a patient's decline pattern as they approach the end of life. Words to describe will cover what we call level of consciousness changes or an altered level of consciousness. In the education corner, I will talk about weakness and fatigue, and I will highlight our wonderful hospice aides who are essential in helping combat those symptoms. Next week's episode will focus on when eating and drinking stop. So the first thing I'm going to address today is called level of consciousness, or LOC. This is something pretty specific to Hospice of Northwest Ohio. It's a simple descriptor tool that can be useful in describing the condition of a patient. Changes in LOC require an assessment to determine if it is caused by anything other than natural disease progression. These changes could prompt an adjustment in the route of medication. For instance, changing the route of medication from oral to subcutaneous, or stopping any medications that are not needed for symptom control. Level of consciousness is a measure of a person's alertness, their ability to arouse and respond to stimulus in their environment. The first thing I want to make very clear is that a person's LOC is completely separate from confusion or their ability to answer orientation questions. So if the patient has dementia or trouble with knowing who they are, where they are, etc., it doesn't matter. I am simply talking about how alert and awake they are. Someone who is completely awake and alert is at an LOC 1. This means that they are able to stay awake and alert without any stimulation. So this is kind of the default. I am an LOC 1 right now. LOC 2 refers to someone who can wake up with simple verbal stimulation, but if they aren't constantly stimulated, they may drift back off to sleep easily. They are able to focus on a personal exchange, but unable to maintain that focus. This could be considered like a drowsy state. Beyond that, someone can slip into an LOC 3, which means that they are asleep most of the time and are difficult to arouse. They can wake up for short periods of time, usually needing the constant physical stimulation to keep their eyes open. Lastly is LOC 4. This means that no amount of stimulation, verbal or physical, can rouse someone. This person simply cannot respond. This is the equivalent of a coma. I can't think of a time in my career where I saw a hospice patient go from an LOC 4 to an LOC 3, 2, or 1. LOC 4 is the state that someone reaches before death and can last seconds, minutes, hours, days, and in some rare cases, weeks. These two symptoms go hand in hand and are also present for everyone, no matter their diagnosis. Fatigue and weakness can fluctuate day to day, week to week, but overall, everyone just becomes more and more tired and less able to do things for themselves. There are certainly ways to combat some of this, both in the form of medication and non-pharmacological interventions. One thing I always try to stress to caregivers is that every day is going to be a little different. like the ups and downs and loop-de-loops of a roller coaster. For example, maybe their loved one, let's call him John, maybe John was able to get up and walk to the dining room for his breakfast on Wednesday. He had a good day, visited with his family in the afternoon, and was able to enjoy that visit. Then the next day, on Thursday, he says he feels a little tired and asks to have breakfast in his room. A lot of caregivers, professional and otherwise, have an instinct to try and push John to keep moving and stay active and keep doing the things that he had done the day before. I am not saying that people are wrong for doing this because their intentions are always good. But if John agrees to walk to the dining room because he's told to, once he gets there, he may not have the energy to even eat his breakfast. My point is, a person's energy level is going to change from day to day, week to week. They will have good days and bad days. Try your best as a caregiver to meet them where they're at in that moment. Let them guide their activity level. There is a lot going on internally as someone is declining. We want them to save their energy for things that they want to do, like visiting with family, instead of things that they have to do. When I explain to people the interdisciplinary services that hospice can provide, a lot of patients are reluctant to accept an in-home aid. They sometimes feel like maybe they don't need it. Maybe they're nervous about the personal care that is provided and would prefer a family member. And sometimes they just don't understand how they could benefit from having a hospice aid. The way I like to present it to patients is this. Imagine that your energy level is like money in the bank. You get a deposit every morning that you wake up, let's say $100. So you have $100 worth of energy and you wake up at 7 a.m. It might take you $30 worth of that energy just to get out of bed, use the bathroom, and clean up for the day with a bath or shower. So you've already used about a third of your energy and it's not even lunchtime. Allowing a trained, compassionate hospice aide to come and assist with the things that we call activities of daily living may help to reduce that energy to about $15. Then you can use that extra energy to do that project you've wanted to do or visit with family. Again, we want people to be able to do the things that they want to do, especially at this precious time in their lives. Hospice aides can provide basic care by assisting with dressing, bathing, grooming, light meal prep, some light housekeeping related to the patient care area, or can simply provide companionship and support to the patient and their loved ones. I have seen some unmistakable bonds and friendships form between a patient and their hospice aide. I have watched these hardworking hospice aides step up and provide the best care possible to our patients and families. Oftentimes, they are alerting the nurse of changes in the patient's condition before the nurse is even aware, because they are seeing the patient a little more often. So again, I would encourage anyone who is on the hospice program to utilize their hospice aides. Thanks for watching. This has been an episode of the Caregiver Support Series brought to you by Hospice of Northwest Ohio. Next week's topic is When Eating and Drinking Stop.